Jesus. Let's see. There we go. What's happening? As Shane, what's up? You say, good morning, America. I guess it's good afternoon, good good lunchtime, brunch time, whatever you want to say. Let's see. So big day, right? Big day. Today's the day. April 2nd. It's either going to be a Y2K crazy, all hell's going to break loose, stock market's going to go crazy, houses are going to start burning down, or maybe something else like good things for the American citizens. So, everybody's best guess. We will see what's going to happen. Let me get my stuff set up here. Again, if you haven't been following, today's like the Liberation Day for the tariffs. You know, originally it was tit for tat. Now it's 25 across the board. And then now I've heard, 20 across the board. And there'll be some exceptions that, with good faith trading, I think, that he's going to put in or implement. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on. I don't think they have the press briefing or anything like that hadn't happened. It usually happens about noon. So I'm on a little later, probably just do an hour or so. If you guys want to chime in, I've heard reciprocal. I've heard one was telling me like some type of circle cycle. Everybody has their own things that they're thinking is going to happen. So let's see. Sweeping new rounds of tariffs. Cause I'm just kind of like I said, I just seen things that are interesting, fun, exciting. It's an interesting day to be alive. The golden time, right? Golden time, 2025. It's a 4/2/25 on Tuesday, the big Liberation Day again. Let's see what this dude has to say here. Let me get you switched over here. There we go. Okay, let's see what he says.
Trump set to announce a sweeping new round of tariff sales taxes that will have a huge impact on consumers and the economy. Rebecca Jarvis is going to break that down after this report from Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. Well, after weeks of uncertainty and anxiety, in just hours here, President Trump is finally set to unveil his most aggressive tariffs yet. He says they will restore fairness to the global trading system and ultimately grow the U.S. economy. But economists warn American consumers will pay the price. This morning, the country and the
I mean, I'm sure, but I if you guys remember in the past shows, I had showed the graph how we're like we only because of the tariffs that everybody has on us, we only like import like 5 or 10% of our stuff. So we're like the largest, richest consumers in the world, right? And if everybody has 100%, 25, 50%, 75%, what do you think is going to happen? All this other is just rhetoric. You don't know. You hear one thing, but I'm telling you, he's not going to do this. And yeah, things may go up a little bit for a little bit just because now you only have what we have in the country, right? We only have the chickens we have in the country. We're not importing them. That Walmart, if they export that chicken or whatever, the eggs or whatever, yeah, that's going to go up until they switch. So maybe people need to start doing some chicken farms, egg farms or whatever. But that's a lot of opportunity for American citizens to get in the game of big time manufacturing, et cetera. So let's see what they say.
The world bracing for impact as President Trump prepares to unleash reciprocal tariffs on America's trading partners, what he's calling Liberation Day.
What they do to us, we do to them.
But it remains unclear what exactly the president will announce today. The scope of these tariffs and which countries will be targeted still unknown.
He's with his trade and tariff team right now, perfecting it to make sure this is a perfect deal for the American people and the American worker.
The uncertainty is injecting fresh concern into an already jittery stock market, as economists warn American consumers will bear the brunt of this. Tariffs on imported products are taxes paid by American businesses. Those costs are then passed along to consumers in the form of higher prices on everything from groceries and electronics to cars and clothes. The president insists his tariffs will ultimately boost the economy and encourage manufacturing in the U.S., but it could take years to ramp up production on American soil. The message from the White House: have faith.
You should trust what this president did for you in his first term. He effectively utilized tariffs while driving down inflation.
But experts have concluded the tariffs during Trump's first term drove prices up. The president sees these new tariffs as a means of economic redemption, a way to punish countries that he feels treat the U.S. unfairly.
Many countries have taken advantage of us.
He has acknowledged Americans could feel some short-term economic pain. The big question: how long will it last? Consumers now rattled and racing to make big purchases like cars before the tariffs hit.
This weekend alone, I think we sold and delivered probably about 40 cars, which is 20-30% above normal.
In Brooklyn, New York, Robert Samuel decided it wasn't worth the risk to wait.
I was going to purchase a car later down the line, but now that it's been updated with these tariff prices affecting us, I decided to come in today and leave with one today.
And the president will finally unveil these.
Hey, that's not a bad idea. He's trying to, like, hey, if I got to do a $30,000, $50,000 car, you know, if you do a 25%, I mean, just roughly, that's, you know, another $20,000 he has to pay for the same car. You know, and dealerships are horrible about it. How many times you've been to a dealership and you actually look at the contract? Well, we had an unloading fee on that. And then we had a transport fee from our dealership. Oh, there's a diesel cost. Hey, don't forget there's a diesel cost. I mean, these guys are adding anything and everything to take advantage of the situation. So, yeah, I'm sure all the foreign cars are going to skyrocket just because they can, right? They're all going to turn into BMWs. All of them. All of them are going to be like, hey, this is like highfalutin money now, you know? Heck no, man. But I do hope, you know, Ford, Chevy, and those kinds of cars that they look at it and say, hey, why don't, you know, for all this money they're saving, why don't we just like actually give them some money to lower the cost or something. Some say, hey, if you buy an American-made car, which they've already said, right? If you buy an American car, you can write it off. That's literally what he's saying. Now, before you can write off, you know, what does it say? Like you'd have to do a Land Rover because it's over a certain poundage, 5,000 pounds or something like that. I mean, on the business side of it, you can only write off this much and that way. No, they're saying they can write it off. So I would assume if it comes around, they're probably going to let you do the old 100% write-off if you buy an American-made car product. Now, I know the rules haven't come out yet, but we'll have to look at that, you know, because that's a big deal. That's a huge deal for a business, you know. You make $100,000, you can spend $100,000 and write 100%, zero paid, zero taxes. That's a huge deal. So hopefully they'll supplement something like that so they don't get greedy, you know, because that's ultimately, unfortunately, you know, well, you know, it's assembled in America, so we got to add another 20% to local, and it's going to kill them because now you're structured to just buying those certain vehicles that are available at a good price, and not until you go, you know, how many people buy a car every day? You know, it's like, yeah, you got your car, maybe you've had it for 5 years. Nobody's going to upgrade a car until it comes around. So I think in the vehicle market, it's going to take people a long time to see those benefits or the negatives. Right. But we're going to see like blinging Hondas running around because they're going to be worth a hell of a lot more. And I feel bad for their insurance because how's that going to work? You know, well, if you destroy a Honda, that Honda's not the same price. It's 20-25% more now. Or whatever, Nissan.
Tariffs here in a Rose Garden ceremony at 4 p.m. after the markets close. We are told they will go into effect immediately, George.
Okay, Marion, one other thing that's going into effect, these massive layoffs at the Department of Health and Human Services.
George, 10,000 layoffs are now underway at HHS. The move catching many off guard. We saw those long lines yesterday of federal workers outside buildings waiting to learn if they'd been fired, some showing up only to discover.
See, I know they talked about that, but you can't tell me that there's not huge opportunities elsewhere. Why don't they turn these into Doge employees that all they do is heat seek the government, right? Heat seek exactly what the Doge teams are doing, you know, IRS, but toward the government instead of its people, right? If they have so many, match it. Hey, there's, you know, obviously there's more abuse going on the government side than it seems like it is from the citizen side, right? I don't remember last time you hear, well, this citizen, you know, got away with $80 billion. not, for taxes. So, could be something they could do and look at least, so you can save some of these folks.
Their badges had been cut off. Now, among those fired, the FDA's top tobacco regulator, under whose leadership teenage tobacco use dropped to its lowest point in a decade, also laid off researchers working on everything from drug use and mental health to reproduction and infertility and workplace safety. George.
Okay, Mary Bruce, thanks very much.
In other news, U.S. residents are going to be happy to hear
Not
this.
another
It just
commercial,
came out.
Jesus.
There's a new website.
There we go. Okay, so that's over. Bam! Liberation
here we
Day,
go.
folks.
Liberation Day. President Trump is set to roll out a wave of tariffs.
Bam. What do we got here? Okay, so it looks like all kinds of hell's breaking loose elsewhere. Let's see what they say here.
An arson attack and attempted vandalism at the Republican Party headquarters in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Take a look.
So it sounds like they're literally going to Republican reps and burning their community houses down, I guess.
These photos provided by the Republican Party of New Mexico show just some of the aftermath of that weekend attack. No injuries reported there, including to the firefighters who say they were able to get that fire out in a matter of moments. But again, a lot of damage left behind. Amy Barella is the chairwoman of the Republican Party of New Mexico, joining us now to discuss all of this. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you.
So on this pause, I was just going to say, with all these individuals getting fired, that's going to excel the housing crash, right? I mean, there's probably landlords that were renting those properties to all those hundreds of thousands of employees that now have to move back in with mom, whatever, you can't assume they all have mortgages, right? But if they do have mortgages, they're going to get right back to work, right? Because then they have to worry about unemployment. They got to worry about all the other sectors of that coming with this. So let's see what they're doing here. But this is just talking about I guess they're attacking in New Mexico, which, it's crazy.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, first off, can you kind of walk me through how you found out about what was going on here?
So my phone rang about 7 o'clock in the morning. I was getting ready for church, and it was somebody that had received notification from our alarm system that there was something going on at headquarters. So I called the executive director, and she was already on her way to the headquarters to see what was going on. And we knew that there was a fire. And so I just I changed clothes into some mop-up clothes to go clean up the mess and headed to Albuquerque. And it's after sitting down and crying for just a minute, now we are in repair mode and going to come out stronger than ever.
I know it's all.
So here's another thing. I know that on the Tesla attacks, they were talking about how they got somebody in custody, but, you're assuming that these aren't gang affiliated with the whole terrorism thing that he identified, right? So, I mean, a lot of this heavy stuff, it may not even be actual U.S. citizens. They could be anybody. Right? I mean, they're deporting a lot of people and made a lot of people mad. They're saying, hey, this whole organization is considered a terrorist organization, so that they're probably going to start, hey, we're going to act like it now. So then they're going out and bombing and doing all this, fire doing that. So there's been confirmation that you can't tell me that this building does not have video. I mean, right? I mean, who doesn't have video or some type of, I know on the Teslas, it's I didn't know they had videos in their rear view mirrors or their side view mirrors. That's crazy. That's cool. But I mean, yeah, those were all, they seem like, upper, older, middle class type folks. But on these, these are pretty serious when you're bombing, doing arson and felony. This is felony crimes type stuff. I mean, that'll put you away for a long time, but I'm just surprised that they haven't really talked about, is this possibly coming from other sources or paid protest or anything like that?
Under investigation right now. There are several agencies that are involved. But what can you tell me overall about what happened?
We received notification from our alarm system of motion detected about 1 a.m. and we didn't see anything going on. So we just figured it was just a false alarm. And then at 5 a.m., the alarm went off again, and that is when the fire actually ignited.
Have you guys had any sort of prior
Yeah, Chris, I had no idea about the old Tesla cams. Like, I think that's the coolest thing. You know, these guys are just going long, and maybe they didn't release it right out the gate because, the more they get, and these guys are caught red-handed, red-handed. And they're going to be down. They're going to charge them too. And it's not going to be just charging for vandalism. I mean, they could throw a lot of charges on there. They're talking about, domestic terrorism and stuff.
Threats, anything that stood out to you that maybe led up to all of this?
Unfortunately, we get threats via email and voicemail almost daily. So there's no way that we can pinpoint which one it was specifically, but the FBI have all of them.
And they're, of course, investigating along with several other agencies here. Had this had any sort of impact on security at your building? What about other Republican headquarters nationwide? Are they maybe beefing up security as a result of this?
I didn't realize until yesterday, I had a whole bunch of state party chairs reach out to me that this is occurring nationally. They're getting broken into, items stolen, vandalism, at many state headquarters. So I hope to be able to get them recognized as well, because this is obviously a national problem. As far as our headquarters is concerned, as we rebuild, we are also going to strengthen our security measures for, after hours and during work hours.
And we've heard from some folks that this could be investigated as a potential hate crime. So I have to ask, is that how you view it?
Absolutely. And that is also how the FBI is viewing it as well. This was a blatant attack on the Republican headquarters.
Let's see if I can actually ask Alexa, define hate crime.
Hate crime is usually defined as a crime considered particularly heinous for having been motivated by hate for a race, gender, religion, etc., and which can result in harsher punishments by statute.
So it's usually for a person. That's what it sounds like, right? I mean, if you do it to a person's house, motivated, I mean, I'm just trying to chase what they would look at on that, on the legal side, okay.
Like this, and I really pray that it is not a result of one of our Congress ladies' comments that she had the night before at a town hall meeting, specifically asking for the people in the crowd to agitate and be the agitators. 5 hours later is when the next notification for our alarms went off.
What would you say to the person or persons who did this? If you could speak with them directly, what would you want to say to them?
Really?
Nothing good can result from violent behavior or even any kind of verbal or physical behavior. We can all sit at the table and we can come to a compromise that betters New Mexico. And, they try to intimidate us and silence us because we are fighting for all the citizens of New Mexico. And this is only emboldening me to make sure that I represent all of New Mexicans, because there are so many New Mexicans that are touched by crime in some sort of fashion. And so I am going to make sure that we go.
Did you guys hear that they're talking about maybe calling it New America? Like that's something that's like they are talking about at the moment. Instead of New Mexico, they're going to call it New America. So it's one of those Trump's ego things that, probably, let's see what happens. I don't know.
Do legislation, fix crime policies, do whatever we can to make New Mexico a better place.
How can political leaders here on both sides work together? You kind of touched on this a little bit, but you have Republicans, Democrats. Things are obviously very heated politically nationwide right now. So how can the two parties work together to prevent things like this?
We need to actually sit at the table and address specific legislation to handle crime. Right now, we have our law enforcement agencies that do exactly as they're supposed to do. They apprehend and they charge. But the judicial system is failing us because they are failing to prosecute and releasing the people. We have 3 other instances that happened with our.
That's another thing. During COVID, they had put where it was pretty much catch and release. Like they weren't actually taking them to jail, but they were doing that in reference to COVID. And I wonder if that's like what she's talking about is like, yeah, they're catching and releasing. They're really not doing anything. You know, if someone's throwing a firebomb toward anybody's business, house, or home, or anything like that, they're going to go to jail. Now, what the judges do based on that, I mean, that needs to be something they do like an internal review if judges are letting people go. But I mean, that's the thing that's been around a long time. Just even the last 3 or 4 years, they're letting people go for pretty much anything. You know, they're letting them out, or they're doing small bonds, or hey, there's no jail time. Oh, that dude just killed somebody. Oh, he got 2 years, only served a year. You know what I mean? It's been going on a long time because it's really not in the public eye. It's not something that's being seen in the public eye. But I think that's gonna change. You know, I think they need to make that highly public knowledge of what happens, because anything that happens in the court system is usually public knowledge anyway. But to have it actually out there, kind of like an Instagram, hey, this is what's going on. You know, this dude, this person. You know, this is what's happening. Because even those systems, like they, you know, those systems are years old too. You know, those are ridiculously old, and they're like city systems that haven't ever been updated. So, Chris, it pertains to a whole group of people. I believe Tesla owners may be qualified. I'm more guessing domestic terrorism. Let's see. Yeah, well, and the thing is, you don't know who it is. You know, is it our own citizens doing this? Is it a sham? Someone's getting paid to come down here and throw a couple of firebombs, and they, you know, go across the border either way. You know, could be Canadians. You know, it's not just Mexico, man. Canadians, bro. Like, why wouldn't they be upset? What's going on right now? You know, there's a lot of stuff going on that they have to identify and find. Hey, point the finger at who really is causing this. I know Elon Musk even said that. It's like, hey, you know, these guys are doing all this, but who's funding them? Who's making this happen? Who's kind of leading which way they're going? It's something to pay attention to. You know, you don't know. You know, so we can't just say, oh, they're angry Democrats. Dude, Democrats are regular citizens too. I mean, that's the thing everybody says. Well, Democrats are, you know, alienate and Republicans alienate. No, at the end of the day, Democrats and Republicans are both sides, and at the end of the day, it's the United States. Doesn't matter who's in power. At the end of the day, it's still the United States. Right? So, for other countries, they still fear the United States. Now, like you said, you have yin and yang, depending on which side you fall. But at the end of the day, you know, someone comes in and kind of picks a fight and says, hey, let's throw a bunch of this and that at somebody, and everybody's assuming it's the other side. And it can be completely not that. Completely. So keep that in mind when you're watching this rhetoric. You know, is it a Democrat doing it? You can't say that unless they show actual evidence, which you can't tell me that any of these buildings, these commercial buildings, don't have film. So I'm sure that'll come out at a later date.
Our headquarters where people were actually charged, but everybody was released. So this escalates the problem. If we can't fix the small crime, how are we going to address the larger crime?
All right. Amy Barela, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Obviously, a lot of damage we see in the photos, and now there is, of course, increased security. Anything you want to add about this? Anything I left out before you go?
No, other than we are going to come out better and stronger. Our headquarters is going to be remodeled, and we are not going to be silenced.
All right. Amy Barela there, chairwoman of the Republican Party of New Mexico. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We appreciate it.
Test.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we did reach out to the New Mexico Democrats. They have responded as well with this statement right here on your screen. And we did reach out to the New Mexico Democrats. They have responded with this statement right here on your screen.
Let's see. Hold on a second. Okay, so there should be no reason. Yeah, I don't know why it's all messing up on my voice, man. There is nothing wrong with my system. Okay, should be. That's crazy. Test, test, test. Can you hear me? Isn't that crazy? There's no reason. None. Yeah, yeah. AI censorship. Yeah, it's the deep state, right? Deep state. It's crazy. Anyway, okay, so we're back on. Obviously, I can talk now. Let's see what going on. So, Liberation Day. This is from Fox. What they're talking about, they're just prepping up.
To you, Kareem, a pleasure having you on the show.
Good morning, Janae. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's first set the stage for those unfamiliar with the term tariff. What is a tariff? How does it impact Americans on a day-to-day basis as it relates to the economy?
Thank you,
absolutely. I mean, a tariff is essentially a tax that's put in cross-border trade. This was one of the primary sources of revenue of the United States for many, many years, up until the 20s and 30s, a large source of federal revenue, until we started entering into more of the free trade economy and opened it up to more globalization, which is the way that we operate and have operated for a very, very long time, especially as the United States moved away from being a manufacturing nation. And the truth of the matter is who pays the tariff is pretty much the consumers in America and other nations that impose such a tariff, because these excess costs on these goods need to be filtered through. And if,
like I said, Hobby Lobby is screwed, man. I mean, think of all these, think of all the the access stuff when you go to a Walmart and you flip it around and it says made in some other country. Yeah, that item is going to go up unless they can replace it with an American made product. And that's the thing. Is that going to happen immediately? Probably not. You know, if Walmart maintains their purchase list, hey, all of our purchases come from this country and that's how we make much money because, they're super cheap. Well, yeah, they just added 25, then they're going to add 30 because that's what happened during COVID. Everybody took advantage of the increase across the board. People took it just to see if people would pay it. So yeah, eventually that product just won't get sold, and then they'll, Walmart, or I use Walmart. It can be anybody, Hobby Lobby. Just think of all of the kind of just the cheapest products possibly made. What about the whole Temu thing? Those products are ridiculously cheap, right? Well, now it's like not anymore. Now you got a 25% on that, but even 25% on Temu items is still cheap, right? I mean, we were talking about the other day how it's like they were making like in the 90s and 2000s, they're like made 8 cents was the minimum wage, across the board internationally out there, where we're doing the sweatshops and stuff. And now it's like, hey, yeah, well, at 25%, I don't know if that's going to really affect, a whole lot, because 25% is a whole lot less than, if we tried to do it here, yeah, we may have to do 75 or $1 more, so whatever it is, percentage wise. So let's see what he says.
Suppliers are not willing to absorb those costs, then those costs have to be passed off in the higher price of the goods. And that's what we are seeing today.
Yeah, they're going to have to change the supply
underneath of President Trump's, term here.
It's the whole who moved my cheese concept on the book. Who moved my cheese? Everything's going to go up, and they're going to look at it. Well, that's going to go up. That's going to go up. And they don't even care because it's like, well, just raise it 25%. But I guarantee you they'll raise it 30% just to make a little extra money because nobody's paying attention. And then they can pass it off as, oh, it's part of the tariff thing, when really they're adding another 5 to 10% on that item. And that's what they did during COVID. Rents, housing, think of it. Everything went skyrocket, right? You can't tell me in the worst time, all of a sudden the houses are doubling. That's the same thing with the product. Everybody used the excuse to increase. So yeah, as long as people are selfish and they want to increase everything, yeah, they're going to do it. But again, the who moved my cheese concept is they're going to have to find a new supplier, right? Instead of going over here, we'll go to India. India has the exact same product, and they may even be cheaper because now there's no tariffs, or they decide to come here and manufacture it, and it's cheaper. But again, they're going to use the current price in the United States. So I don't know if it's ever going to go under. Kind of like, it's not going to be a correction. It's just going to be the same, if not more, a little bit more expensive, even when they correct or build it here.
April 2nd, President Donald Trump has claimed today as, quote, Liberation Day. What does that mean?
Well, I think that he is pushing for the idea, and it's a great one in practice, that we are not as tied to other countries and foreign nations with regards to our manufacturing and our own capabilities. You know, he would like to swing back.
Yeah, I think Walmart will rebound. You know, let's see what happens. You know, I don't know. Like you see, maybe I'll go do a live run through Walmart and just show you some, you know, shoestrings, shoe polish. I mean, things that are just kind of the off the wall you really don't think about. Man, everything is made in China, man. If you hadn't looked in a long time, everything is imported because it's cheaper, you know, and that's the problem we're going to have. They're going to have to adjust and readjust their inventory. I can imagine the stress on all the sellers, so to speak.
The manufacturing prowess back to the United States. However, I believe truly when we look at it from an economic standpoint, and many of the indicators show that it really is spotlighting our dependence on foreign nations and truly is pushing forward the idea of how reliant we are upon other nations. I mean, if we look at the second largest company in the United States, Amazon, you know, 75% of the products that are bought on Amazon come from China. So
See, here's the thing on that though. Right? The algorithm on Amazon only gives you the best price, right? So if you remove one item, you can get 1,000 of those items because everybody sells that one item. That's legit, right? But based on star rating, customer reviews, and then price, you have like 4 or 5 options. So it is curious to see what's going to happen because, like I said, that's an easy fix for Amazon because at the end of the day, if it goes up in price, it goes down on the list. So it's kind of an automatic deal, right? It's not, they're not going to care because at the end of the day, they're not selling the product. They're just offering the best product and getting it to you. You know, they're kind of that middleman.
A major reliance in areas like this. We know that oil and gas industry for us is dramatically impacted by our relationships with Canada, and this can impact the cost of gas prices, agricultural products from Mexico, and so forth. So, you know, without having a significant infrastructure to be able to support these changes and these additional costs and tariffs, I think it can create definitely a supply and demand issue. And at the same time, too, the potential for inflation, which we're already seeing indicators of this with the PPI reports and the CPI reports, and also at the same time could make it a difficult time ahead for American consumers.
Kareem, I'm glad you bring up that cost analysis. It actually goes into my next.
Okay, so let's say 50% tariff on EU on American dairy, 700% tariff on Japan on rice, 700, right? So, I mean, you got to look at poundage. I don't know if we get, I mean, I can't really say I look at the actual rice, where it's coming from. You know, is rice only made in Japan, foreign country? I don't know. 100% tariff on India on agricultural product. That's huge. So, but again, remember, these are what they have on us, right? It's tit for tat.
Next question. If you can see this on your screen as we share it with the viewers, the White House provided a list of tariffs imposed on U.S. products. They say 50% tariff from the EU on American dairy, 700% tariff from Japan on rice, 100% tariff from India on agricultural products. So that pretty much breaks down that.
Hey, that's a good point. There'll be a hell of a lot of clearance items. But is it like charge you 20% clearance or is it 20% less? You know, I don't know. I don't know how that works. That's a good point though. Because they gotta dump their product. It's like anything else. You gotta dump it, man. Because if you don't dump it, then you're holding the buck. And who's gonna pay, 100%? Who's gonna pay 100% on rice or 700, on a product when all they have to do is switch, right? Well, because now maybe, the other one's only, it's so many dollars or percentage less than the rice that's from Japan. I mean, people will just choose different. It's going to be a hell of a wave to ride, but it's curious to see what's going to happen.
cost effectiveness that you were sharing with us. As we further look at this morning, we know that Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, she provided this quote. She says, this makes it virtually impossible for American products to be imported into these markets. It's time for reciprocity. Talk about those reciprocal tariffs and how that sets up trade for the U.S. and other partners.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, reciprocal tariffs create a balance of trade so that nations that have a specialty with regards to certain levels of manufacturing, or as you highlighted, agricultural products, can still be able to thrive in the global economy. We look at something like Japan and the 700% tariff on rice.
You just got to remember too, like when they're only doing like $2 an hour in these foreign countries, there's no way you can still develop that product, even for tit for tat, right? Even if it's equal, it costs that much more to make that product here in America, right? It does, because our we may be $8, roughly $8 an hour, when they're only $2 an hour. I know we talked about it on other shows. So how's that going to work? Even if you add an equal tariff, it still costs more for Americans to do what they do less. So I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a full correction. It'll be at least equal, and we can try to sell, Under Armour, right? If someone's like, hey, I want to sell Under Armour. Well, I don't think Under Armour is made here. Like they said, everything's outsourced. Everything's outsourced. But even if they tried to outsource it there, I don't know how that works, because it's like you said, if you already you're building that item, all these items that we get imported are being developed in that country from Americans themselves. Is it considered still tariffed? Right? You get what I'm saying? Like, if to export our items cost money, but all of our items are being made outside of our country right now. Kind of like what Trump is saying. If you come here, you don't get tariffed. So I'm assuming that if they're there, they don't get tariffed to be there. You get what I'm saying? So it's something to think about. Like, technically, if they come here, yeah, they don't get tariffed. But then if they're already in another country, they can sell to their citizens without being tariffed almost equally the same. It's only if it crosses the border, right? So what the advantage is, yeah, you're just going to have to break that one big old building up into two, have one here and have one there. I guess is probably the answer for these companies.
As a significant, example of this. However, at
Yeah,
the same
scary
time,
but true.
too, we
Yeah.
also have such tariffs that are in place in our own nation, which are called anti-dumping tariffs. And these tariffs are already put in place where the United States specializes in certain levels of manufacturing and does not want to have any other products come into the market from other nations. So they make it excessively difficult. Supremely high tariffs, which are in the form of anti-dumping tariffs, could be 200, 300, 400%. And so, just as other nations have these sort of anti-dumping tariffs, so does the United States. And, the focus here on the idea of Liberation Day is to try to cover this $1.2 trillion debt. But the reality of it is at what cost? We see that there is an increase in factory employment by up to, let's say, 0.4%. But at the same time, a reduction in payroll by almost 5 times that amount, almost 2%. So what does that mean? It means that as the cost of goods continue to rise in the United States, businesses that are looking after their bottom line start cutting and start letting go of people. So higher costs, businesses that are letting go of individuals, the environment just is not one that is of a thriving global economy. And this is, part of the balancing act that needs to be put in place and looked at on a consistent basis to ensure that the true intention of.
Yeah, Chris. So there is never 100% fix. You're right. There's always going to be something running around, there's going to be balances, checks and balances. They're not even talking about the fact that if they do build a building here, they have to hire people, right? But they're hiring, like, again, our people at our wages, which these big dogs are going to see a loss regardless. So the percentages would have to be equal to whatever the income or the payment of the employee and the buildings and we were talking about property taxes. We're talking about all that kind of stuff on top of it. If you can get somebody to do something, everybody's seen it, like the 4-day work week, where you can pay a secretary in India per hour, $4 an hour, which is considered good, right? Or whatever it is. I mean, it's not to the par of what we're at. But that's why a lot of people are outsourcing. That's why the popular, you get on the phone, you hear somebody, they have an accent. Well, you can pay extra for no accent on these call services. So if you call a doctor's office, there's a good chance that they just outsource that and it comes back. Why don't they outsource communications? Don't just outsource money, outsource communications, and that would help too. There's a lot of different things you can do. Yeah, like you said, it's a balancing act.
Of the Liberation Day is met.
Kareem, from the very beginning of this conversation, we know world leaders have been very vocal about these tariffs and what it could mean for their local economy. We know the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, has been one that's been very vocal. She is expected to speak later today in response to today being a Liberation Day, as quoted from President Donald Trump. But if you take a look at your screen, this is the latest from the newest Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. He said,
Keep in mind, Mark Carney is the one that's I'm pretty sure they're saying, hey, take those products off the shelf. They went a step further. Instead of having freedom of choice or freedom of expensive items, right? Kind of like the BMW side. Instead of paying, for the old malt whiskey or liquors or stuff like that, they're saying, hey, no, you got to take them off the shelves. So, I'm sure President Trump doesn't want to be petty and say, hey, throw away all Canadian items and throw it in the trash kind of thing, or put it on the clearance item because you can't get them. It's not a choice, right? It's not a choice. This guy's taking the choice away versus say, just if you wanted to pay $100 more for an item, good for you, right? But at the end of the day, this guy, and the prime minister before, they were literally removing items from U.S. off their shelves in Canada.
As I spoke with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum this morning. In a shifting global economy, strong and reliable partners matter. Canada and Mexico are focused on deepening our trade relations and building stronger economies together. A lot of Americans this morning looking at Canada and Mexico, specifically as it relates to trade. As we know, they are right there bordering us with the U.S., Kareem. As we look ahead, because a lot of people are looking at today on this Liberation Day, but let's look at the next few weeks, the next few months. Where will we be next year as it relates to these tariffs?
Yeah, so it's a very good point, and I discussed this actually in my book, Supply Chain Ups and Downs, quite a bit in a chapter that is with regards to nearshoring. And some of our closest trade and ally partners are going to be Canada and are going to be Mexico with regards to manufacturing and as well as other products that we purchase. But in the
if you remember, I did the old scale not too long ago where it showed the imports and exports ratio. It's like they import 70 to 80% into the U.S., both Canada and Mexico. And because of the tariffs, we only export 5 or 10%. So when we get into a pissing match, they're going to lose, and it's not going to be pretty, right? I mean, it's going to be bad. But again, Canadians are taking off things American made off the shelves, not giving them a choice. And then they're also shaking up the whole power grid, shutting people's power off. I mean, they're getting dirty. And we have to be able to play dirty too, right? I haven't, they're not suggesting not buy Canadian products, but, is it something that needs to be part of it? You might see this stuff in clearance items. I don't know. Kind of like Chris said earlier.
Immediate term, with the tariffs as they have been imposed upon these trading partners, these nearshoring partners, we can expect increases in potential gas prices through the relationships with Canada and the crude oil. We can expect increase.
I don't think so. I totally disagree. Because what does Trump say? Drill, baby, drill. There's going to be a time frame. They have to get up. They have to buy the equipment. They have to reactivate what they had years ago. And it's not going to happen tomorrow, right? Drill, baby, drill. They're going to unlock all the permits, all the things, all that. You name it. I think gas, I mean, just the other day, I mean, I could literally go down the street. Diesel is 275. 275. So that means unleaded's around what, 250? You know, 245. I mean, that's pretty good. Now, how CNG is 299, I think that's the biggest scam. You know, I just green, go green, right? CNG. And then like, how does it was supposed to be like $1 versus their $3 on everything you did. I mean, that was the ratio. And somehow it's like gotten as expensive as diesel. Man, they convinced you to do all these CNG vehicles. And all of a sudden, it's just like anything else. Everybody got greedy. The seller of CNG can mark any price he wants on CNG. There's no regulation on that. So I'm going to sell it for as much as I can. So that's like the Cokes and Dr. Peppers right now. How the hell? That's another thing, man. These things used to be 25 cents, 25 cents, then 50 cents. And now literally, not the other day, I think I looked, it was like $4.50 for a soda, an 8-ounce Dr. Pepper, sugar water, $4.50. Man, pay attention to those prices because people, and the only way is to react is not to order it. You know, don't order that. Just do water, man. You got a family of 6, you know, $4.50 times 6. That's crazy for some water or for some ice. And then they put ice in it. So it's not, and then sometimes you don't even get the best service either, but you know, it's just one of those things.
Costs in produce. We're already seeing that reverberate through many businesses through the relationships with Mexico. And these will impact the consumer's pockets and dollars and cents on a daily basis. And so, you know, it's something where we need to be careful again and have a very tempered approach around how we implement these tariffs. And when we start seeing those indicators of inflation and then recession and even moving towards more drastic measures within our economy, we need to be able to pull back. We need to be able to, negotiate and ensure that the American consumers are not suffering as a result of these actions.
Kareem, as you mentioned, potential drastic measures, we've seen across social media how many Americans have responded with ultimately fear if they don't really understand what's going on. You see people heading out to the gas stations with several of those buckets to fill up a lot of gas because they're worried that gas prices will increase heavily. You even see people at the grocery store stocking up on certain items as they're worried about the price increase on those goods. Talk about what people need to do if they are worried, if they don't really understand what they need to do, if they're concerned about feeding their family because of this.
You know, it's all of the above. We need to have a scenario of
Keep in mind, I was just going to add this in here. Keep in mind, shame on the sellers, right? And don't get me wrong, if you're a big conglomerate, you know, like Walmart or anything, Target, name any of them, right? They're all trying to find the best. They're trying to buy the cheapest price and bring it to the customer. But one thing you don't see is they may bring the cheapest price, but still charge you what regular people pay. So if I find a supplier that sells me milk for $2, you know, and the normal price is say $5, but then I find a supplier that sells me at $1, I'm going to keep that extra savings. I'm not going to pass it on to the customer. Right, it's still going to be $5 because everything needs to be the same. Why would I be, you know, dollars cheaper than the competition? I just need to be 50 or 25 cents than the competition. And that's one thing when you're Walmart or Target or any of the big conglomerates, and they don't have any competition, right? Who are the big suppliers of food? You know, but I go back into the Hobby Lobbies and I go back into those kinds of things. There's, you know, if they don't have any competition, you're only getting that from one source. And, you know, Walmart is they also equally have Sam's, right? And a lot of people don't know that. But if you get a Walmart card, it's the same as a Sam's card. It's the same thing. So really, yeah, they may appear, but you're also paying what, $100? I mean, it's like your own savings. Hey, they're $1 cheaper. Well, yeah, you pay a monthly membership for that, bud. And a lot of people don't see that, you know, they just don't calculate it. So it's just interesting, you know. And I say shame on them because it's like at the end of the day, yeah, the carpet's being pulled and say, hey, you're going to have to find a different supplier. Well, are they going to try to keep the same, you know, remember Walmart's making, it's like billions of dollars. they can just sign something or say, hey, you know what, we're going to, during this process, we're going to just make it, we're just going to have, nothing's going to change. They can just make the decision. Nothing's going to change. Doesn't matter if we're losing a little bit here and on that one, they can make those decisions to never even feel the process of what's going on right now. Or they can increase all the prices 10 times their income on it and say, hey, we're going to sell this milk for $10 now. Yeah, I may have had to pay an extra $1 for it, but who will ever know? Really, who will ever know? And that's the little tricks that you got to watch out for.
Cash preservation for sure. Families in America, we need to be saving for a rainy day. We need to assume that things are going to cost more, and the frequency with which we purchase as a consuming nation may have to decrease in accordance with this to be able to support the families, because our daily products that we use every day, our gas in our cars, our produce that we purchase, the materials that we use to build homes and so forth, are going to be impacted by these tariffs and already are being impacted by these tariffs. And so with this in mind, I do believe it is going to be a bit of a difficult road ahead, unless if the tariffs swing back in a shorter period of time, meaning that a message has been made, negotiations have been made between the United States and these trade partners, and as a result, the tariffs are not in for the long term. But until that is the case, American consumers need to protect themselves, and they need to watch their pennies and work to save towards those rainy days until some of this process basically comes to unfold.
Kareem Kaffouri, a pleasure having you join us bright and early here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much for the detailed breakdown, your expertise and perspective on this topic. As today is Liberation Day, according to President Donald Trump, I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. As we further discuss this headline, take a look at your screen. This is the very latest we're getting as we further discuss tariffs. On this Wednesday morning, we are learning that major car companies report a dramatic rise in sales as new auto tariffs loom. MotorIntelligence.com reporting automakers sold around 1.6 million cars in the U.S. back in March.
Keep in mind, and I kind of go back to the other shows that we talked about. Remember, like if say, I'm going to take your rifles away, and everybody goes buys rifles, right? I'm going to take this away, or, TikTok's gone. Everybody gets a TikTok account. Tariffs, particularly car. Notice that the focus has been car. They're not talking about the flowers at, Hobby Lobby. They're talking about big sales items. The cars, and what's that? Everybody's running to the first thing to do. Literally, everybody's running and buying like crazy. It's almost a strategy.
That's up 13.6%. This brought first quarter total sales to more than 3.9 million vehicles. Almost all automakers reported a surge in electric vehicle sales. Auto industry analysts are saying this morning they expect March sales to jump ahead of President Donald Trump's proposed 25% tariffs on auto imports that are set to go into effect Thursday. The new tariffs are expected to expand to relevant auto parts in the coming weeks through May 3rd. So wanting to provide this perspective for you as we further discuss the tariffs on this Liberation Day. Make sure you're staying tuned to Live Now from Fox for the latest developments. Here at 610 on the East Coast, we are going to a quick 2-minute commercial break. But before we do, we are setting the stage for live events this Wednesday morning. Later in our 6 o'clock hour, we will actually have 3 live events starting at the same time. So we want to hear from you. Which live event would you rather see here on Live Now from Fox? Scan that QR code on your screen or go to
Attorney General Anthony Brown among 20 states' attorney generals suing to get those fired workers their jobs back. The injunction also said
10,000 employees at the Health and Human Services
affected probationary employees. The judge's order also requires the named federal agencies, 18 of them in all, to do whatever they can to reinstate those employees by April 8th. It's unclear how that affects the actions taken at Health and Human Services yesterday, Janae, because the language in that injunction talks about probationary employees, and it appears that many of the people here let go yesterday had been at the agency for quite some time.
Fox 5 DC's Melanie Onwick, always stellar and detailed reporting. Melanie, you raised so many great points. I've also seen on social media how people are questioning how long their benefits will be extended if they need to go to the doctor's office and those type of things. We'll be checking in with you to get those answers throughout the week. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
As we further discuss DC stories, transitioning to give you a live look at the
tracked technological disruption across 2 dimensions and included readiness, allowing us to understand and put together the the job life cycle and the technology life cycle and the career life dimension in tech transformation investment, but skewed at distributions of R&D expenditure and patents and other indicators too. So all those foundational aspects, those functions of the innovation system,
intelligence. And of course, plan your day with us here on Live Now from Fox. You can see the rotating banner on the left side of your screen of upcoming events.
Work and job quality. The sense of job quality changes due to technology based on improved responses to that was highly variable.
All this and is part of any kind of scenario in which the day after tomorrow is discussed, that is considered to be an utter and total failure for the state of Israel, which is again part of where the defense minister Israel Katz here is making that very point, that they need to continue the pressure and to continue to put pressure on the Israelis. The positive thing that you're also seeing here, that we are, I think that has been an advantage for Israel, is that there is backing of the White House. What we've not seen in the previous administration is that you are seeing support coming in from
that are most concerned about the Canadian tariffs because they saw what happened last time. The first thing that happened is you put a tariff on Canadian exports. Potash, the ingredient in agriculture fertilizer. 80% of potash comes as an import into the United States. So that immediately goes up by 25%, according to what the president has said he's going to do. That hurts farmers very, very badly. Second, there's never been a one-sided trade war in the history of the world. So when one party puts a tariff on, the other side retaliates. And in the first Trump administration, the retaliation was heavily against the ag sector. My soybean farmers that were exporting soybeans couldn't export to markets that they were previously able to. My apple farmers who export apples.
Okay, they tariff us like 200%. So they can export all they want, but it's still like at a 200% rate, right? So like you said, 75% coming in, 10% coming in, like out or something like that. So they're not going to win. But I wonder if it's an idea they've looked at. Anybody who's affected by it, it's kind of like a supplement program. The government can say, it's like, hey, if you can prove that you were, you're going to be out, your ass is going to be out kind of thing, that, hey, they'll supplement that for a little while all this shenanigans are going on.
To Canada couldn't do it to the same degree, and their exports drop and their revenues drop, and this is already a low margin business. My distillers and wineries and breweries, many of whom find an important part of their revenue might be 10% or 15% or 25% in export markets to the EU, to Canada, to Mexico, suddenly find that retaliatory tariffs price their products out of business. I'm
going to jump ahead. Ain't nothing going on really that we don't know.
Substance use
said all along, this case should have never been brought. And I did nothing wrong. I'm now happy that our city can finally close the book on this and focus solely on the future of our great city. I want to thank New Yorkers who stood by my side, who prayed for me, who supported me from day one and stuck with me while we focus on the work at hand.
I guess he's out of trouble, which is good.
And continue to deliver for the
CIO. That's threading a needle, Mr. President, when I get the AFL-CIO and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
Taking our government
Planned
away
Parenthood.
from us and force. It's 7 story to inspire. I want them to silence them.
Trade war, as you see right here. This map has how much each state would pay.
This looks interesting.
Are
Let's see what.
speaking ahead of President Trump on the tariffs. Let's listen in on Live Now.
Keep in mind, on the Democratic side, they don't stand up or clap for any recognition, positive or negative. Because if he's doing well, why weren't they doing well? And it makes them look bad, right? So just with that said already, I've seen that in other departments. I've seen it in other corporations where, hey, you don't want to do good enough to where you make somebody else look bad, but really he's smashing everything with the Democratic Party right now. Things are getting done like they've never done before. I mean, he reminds everybody, every conversation he has. So I'm curious to see what he's going to say.
Okay, excuse me. Good afternoon, everybody. And I want to thank Senators Kaine and Welch and also Brooks for joining us here today.
So the guy to the right with him was the one just talking
fight
about all the horrible tariffs.
Trump's trade war, as you see right here. This map has how much each state would pay for this absurd, crazy, chaotic trade war. But the worst thing about it is that it so hurts American families. It is estimated that the average American family will pay more than $5,000 out of their pocket to pay for these tariffs. These tariffs will cost them $5,000 as the prices of everything goes up, whether it's groceries or cars or wood or you name it.
Man, it's like fear mongering, but he's not really saying what.
Why would Trump do this? Why would Trump do this? One reason. He wants to take the money that he gains from tariffs to give tax cuts to billionaires. And when told that American families
they already have tax cuts,
would
bro.
have a great, would
They
pay
already
a whole
got
lot
tax
more out
cuts,
of their
man.
pockets, you know what he said? I don't care. What kind of bubble is this man and his billionaire cohorts in that they don't understand?
Okay, so I know I
average
talked about it before. It's like that hate rhetoric, right? It was before BML against this. Now it's rich versus poor, right? They're rich, you're poor, you should hate it. Let's get them. Millionaires already they already pay 0% taxes, man, right? They already pay to nothing. So he's already proven that there's billions coming in. Billions are coming in from what he's doing. Those have to pay people our wage, right? They're not paying somebody at international side where it's $2 an hour. No, they're going to pay, because I guarantee you they're not going to work on the line for $8. You know, anyone that's been looked at an Amazon facility, I mean, they pay good. They pay good. It's not exciting or glamorous work, but they pay for the work that you provide. And he's now going, hey, it's them versus us. Be upset. You know, it's crazy. Let's see what he says.
American family is told that you're going to have to pay $5,000 more for the things you buy, that it pains them so, well, can't buy that new car, can't take that vacation we've been planning for a whole year with the kids.
See, notice there's no substance to what he's saying. Oh, you're just going to pay $5,000 more with what evidence? You're probably not going to take a vacation this year because, you know, you're going to work extra hours and spoon feed grandpa. Right? Give me some information. Give me some statistics. Why does he think this? Why? Please. Other than just, he's literally like on the podium saying, you're going to pay more. It's because I said so. And these are the same guys. These are the same guys that said inflation was not an issue for the last 4 years. Inflation? What are you talking about? There's no inflation. I mean, how many clips can we go back to on Sleepy Joe? Right? There's inflation. What are you talking? There's no inflation. Okay. So what is he talking about? Nothing. He's literally just saying, hey, you may have to work long hours and work harder and not take vacations this year. But okay, for what reason? Give me some statistics. Give me something.
Can't go visit grandma.
Oh, there's Grandma.
Got to cut back on even the medicines I buy.
Uh-oh. Targeting the elderly.
What bubble do they live in? So we have documented in this chart how much each state would pay from Trump's trade war. And it's devastating. I just talked to over 50 people in my state of New York.
It's only the upper north states that he even cares about.
We're right on the Canadian border. Buffalo thinks they could go into a real recession if these tariffs came about. Plattsburgh, 20% of their businesses are Canadian owned. What are they going to do?
If they're Canadian owned, they're here in the United States, they don't pay a tariff. Unless they export everything. Right?
And there are tens of thousands of job losses in every part of New York State because there are tariffs. They are a tax on families. They don't like taxes. This is one of the...
Okay, why? He just said tens of thousands of people. Which businesses? Who are you talking about? Right?
Worst taxes they could put in. And don't just listen to us. Rand Paul, hardly a Democrat. Tariffs are simply a tax. Senator Mullen, tariffs is a tax. He didn't have the right grammar, but I'll read him verbatim. Tariffs is a tax, and it will be passed on to consumers. According to the New York Times, 6.5 million jobs would be impacted by the Canadian tariffs, and people in red states will be especially impacted, from farmers to small
that's
businesses.
at least a statistic, right?
And here's another problem. It's chaotic. He says one thing one day and another thing the next day. He changes which countries, he changes the percentage, he changes which goods.
He's a negotiator, man. He's scaring the shit out of the other guy. What crazy, if it's like, hey, man, I'm negotiating with crazy here. We just need to settle with what we can and get out. You know, that could be a real thing. You know, they're, you know.
And what do businesses hate? Uncertainty. Whether you're a small business, a medium-sized business, a large business, you want certainty. There's no certainty. That's why the stock market has gone down so much. Consumers, why is their confidence at lower levels than it's been in a very long time? In good part, because of these tariffs. They say, if I'm going to have to pay more for eggs or for bread or for gas or for a car, I better not spend now. So it's creating huge problems in the whole economy.
Remember, we have to have a crash somewhere for that correction. We have to have a housing crash. It's not really a crash. It's, hey, I'm sorry you can't sell a $200,000 house, $100,000 house for $200,000. Yeah, you want to call that a crash? Sure, by all means. Because at the end of the day, that's ridiculous. Regular family, single family, whatever you want to call it, they can't go out and pay double just because of COVID. Because that's what's happened. COVID, and then all of a sudden everything skyrocketed. But remember, they told you there was no inflation. There was none of that. What are you talking about? Everything's good. We should go back and do those clips. And when it's so obvious, and like you said, I'm all about give me some evidence. And he did. He actually said that. Judge Shultz said that. He said that, hey, they're saying they're going to be impacted. That's a vague word. What does that mean? Impacted by this much. But he didn't. You know, just be careful with the vagueness.
Economy. So soon, the Senate will vote on a resolution from Senator Kaine to undo Trump's tariffs on Canadian goods. And we hope that some of our Republican colleagues will join us in that. They don't like the tariffs either. They know they're a tax hike on the American people. They know that the stock market is in turmoil, risking people's retirements. They know that consumer confidence is down. And the odds of a recession, something people hate. It's harder to find a job, keep a job, maintain your weekly budget. If a recession occurs, and now our greatest financial prognosticators are saying the chances of recession because of these tariffs, this tariff tax goes way up. So we're going to fight these tariffs tooth and nail. Trump's done a lot of
They're going to fight everything.
This is way up there.
Progress
Ask American people, and one final thing. Look at what happened in Wisconsin yesterday. The American people understand that Trump is not on their side on tariffs, on tax cuts for billionaires, on cutting Medicaid, on cutting the others.
There's the poor versus
the American
rich.
people are seeing how bad Trump is. Tariffs is a good part of it, and they are not supporting people like Elon Musk and those who support Donald Trump. Tim.
Thank you to Leader Schumer for being a great partner
This
in this
guy
effort.
was just talking about.
And here we are. It's an
I don't wanna
unusual
talk to him.
procedure.
Distrust. Simply want to know who should be liberated, and I think that the
Why are they not using the MCA?
Find something good.
Public safety person.
One.
Yeah,
Ralph?
see what they got going on.
Welcome back, everyone, here to Live Down from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Pace. Thanks again for joining us. As always, we do want to take you out live right now, out to Tampa, where officials are giving an update on security preps for the women's Final Four. Let's listen in.
We also rely on the eyes and ears of everyone to help keep us safe. Whether it's a person acting strangely, unattended packages, or any other concerns, please do not hesitate to call us, no matter how minute it may seem. Most importantly, if you plan on drinking, plan ahead and plan a way home.
Of course, you're
Whether
planning
it's
on
using
drinking.
a rideshare service, arranging for a designated driver, or finding an alternate route or alternate transportation, we want to make
They're
sure
talking
that
about the Final
everybody
Four. We're
gets
going
home
to skip all that and get.
Of this year. And the American people are taking note of it in community after community after community. But it gets worse. Not only have Republicans failed to do anything to drive down the high cost of living in the United States of America,
Man, they're really showing on.
they are trying to
Hey,
take healthcare
but Fox
away
is
from the American
normally
people
Republican, right?
and end Social
They're showing a whole
Security
lot of negative
as we
on it.
know it. Our response to that Republican effort, not on our watch. We're working hard to save Medicaid and strengthen and protect Social Security from Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and the extreme MAGA Republicans who are on the run.
I don't want to hear about that because you know damn well. I mean, they're talking about there's so much fraud. There's people supposed to get arrested even. Elon Musk is talking that they have a list of people he feels that needs to be arrested right now in terms of like selling Social Security numbers and selling Social Security benefits kind of thing. So I don't believe that crap at all. But let's see what Blue State Dems reckless lawsuit against Elon Musk. I just saw this and thought it might be interesting.
Speaker Mike Johnson was forced to cancel several key votes after a GOP House rebellion. 9 Republicans supported Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna and her proposal to allow temporary remote voting for new parents. The vote effectively killing Johnson's efforts to stop her privileged resolution. Opponents say Luna's proposal is unconstitutional. Here's the speaker yesterday.
Well, it's a very disappointing
So they're
result
talking about
on the floor there.
distance voting.
That rule being brought down means that we can't have any further action on the floor this week. That means we will not be voting on the SAVE Act for election integrity. We will not be voting on the rogue judges who are attacking President Trump's agenda. We will not be taking down these terrible Biden policies with the CRA votes. All that was just wiped off the table. It's very unfortunate.
Joining me now is New York Congressman Mike Lawler. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. You were one of the 9 rebels there. Explain what happened.
Well, unfortunately, leadership decided to put a poison pill in the rule to try and take down that discharge petition with respect to proxy voting for new parents. As the father of a 5-month-old daughter, I certainly understand where Representative Luna is coming from.
Which is crazy. There's so much going on in general. It's hard to keep up with, but it sounds like they're talking about remote voting. You know how like they'll do a bill, but deep down somewhere in the terms of use in there somewhere it says, hey, we're gonna pay this or do that. I mean, and that's I think what they're talking about is like everything was great, but then they kind of added on page 360 that they're going to do something else, and they didn't agree with it.
She should not be precluded from doing her job. especially at the onset of having a child. And so the objective of her discharge petition was to allow members to effectively do their jobs even if they are in the process of having a child. We have expectant mothers this Congress who are going to be impacted by this, and that will impact our majority down the road. And so the objective here was to do that. But I will say this, beyond the proxy voting, the effort to nullify a discharge, to me, was the bigger issue. Much like the filibuster in the Senate, if you eliminate that or reduce the ability of a member to do that, it may feel good in the moment, but when the shoe is on the other foot, that is going to backfire significantly. And I just felt that leadership was making a big mistake in doing that. Nobody is trying to stop the agenda here. This was, in my estimation, a mistake to put that poison pill in the rule. They easily could have brought forth another rule without that poison pill and brought the bills forward, the SAVE Act and the No Rogue Rulings Act, this week. We easily could have voted.
It's funny to say GOP rebellion. Right? It's like some Star Wars, the Rebel Rebellion, you know. But it kind of makes sense. They just disagree with whatever's going on. Let's see if we can get to something. Here we go.
And forcing them to choose between that and being here and doing their job,
right,
in my estimation, is wrong.
Well, I think you make a great point, Congressman, really. I want to get your take, given your role on the Financial Services Committee on debanking, because Trump Organization Executive Vice President Eric Trump was here yesterday telling me how several big banks removed his business, canceled his accounts and his family's accounts because of their politics and because his father was president. Watch this.
I never thought I'd fall into the world of crypto until every bank started canceling us for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And it wasn't until that time that I realized how important crypto was, right? Something that's cheaper, faster, more transparent. You can't be canceled.
Which banks canceled you?
Keep in mind, the American note can be taxed, and there's rules based on that. And the American banks are connected to that. Banking, right? You go crypto, they have no connection to that. No connection. So it sounds like maybe that's why they're kind of going against him now, because they're like, hey, well, you know, you're going against the U.S. banks kind of thing, because the banks want to keep in charge.
What happened?
Oh, God, everybody. Capital One being the largest. I've sued them recently. Chase canceled us. Okay. It was illegal lawfare. It was political lawfare. That's exactly what Capital One did. Chase did the same thing. Bank of America did the same thing. TD did the same thing. First Republic did the same thing to us. The weaponization is real, and it has to stop. You can't have banks pick who and shoot. Yep. We were targeted, and we're going to hold those banks accountable, but it's what made me find crypto, and it's what made me find it so alluring. There's nothing that crypto can't do better.
There you go.
It's pretty incredible, the number of banks that he says debanked him. JP Morgan says it does not debank customers over politics. CEO Jamie Dimon is on record blaming bad policy, which incentivizes banks to close a few accounts rather than put the whole bank at risk. He says Congress needs to codify into law that banks should not make decisions based on religious or political factors, Congressman.
Absolutely. I thought there was federal guidelines against that.
What's your take on this? What happened here?
Well, Maria, this is part of the reason why Republicans have been opposed to things like ESG. Banks and corporations should not be making decisions based on politics. And the fact that you had very clear instances of debanking is fundamentally wrong. I think all of these banks need to immediately rectify that. They should not be closing down accounts simply because they or somebody working at their bank disagrees with the politics of an individual. Number one. Number two, it is also exactly why we need to have stability in the digital assets marketplace, and why we are going to be marking up today a stablecoin bill, why we are also passing legislation to block a central bank digital currency, so that things like this don't happen, that politics don't play into the ability of folks freely and fairly move around assets and engage in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And so having stability within the digital.
That's one thing too, right? Bitcoin doesn't discriminate. You trade it, you can't tax it. They have no control over it in terms of governmental side. None.
Assets market is critical. We want a framework, the FIT 21 bill, a stablecoin bill, and blocking a central bank digital currency are all critical to that objective.
Yeah. Meanwhile, New York City Comptroller Brad Lander is calling for a lawsuit against Elon Musk and Tesla. He claims that Musk's focus on Doge has caused the stock market to plummet, hurting the city's pension fund. Remember, in 2023, the New York Post reported that Lander lost more than $30 million from the city pension funds over his investment or directing the investments into Silicon Valley Bank, Congressman. I mean, come on. A New York State senator now wants essentially to ban Tesla from selling in the Empire State. This new bill pulls existing permits for the company's 5 in-person locations, allowing other EV makers.
Hey, see, there's that thing again, that permit, or like the way they can discriminate against anybody they don't like, or policies, or etc. I mean, that's a huge lawsuit. Now the thing is, they can pull a permit and then they can charge them daily for like breaking that permit. They say, we're going to charge you $5,000, $2,000, $1,000 a day because you're operating without a permit, a city permit. I mean, what stops them? Right? They're discriminating against a business. For what reason? Right? But this just shows you, it brings light to things that's been done. It's always been done this way. It's always been done this way. You just don't see it. And when they start to reach like this, you go, hey, wait a minute. You mean there's actually, like, if you go and decide to do a hair salon, but for some reason they don't like that person, they can shut your business down. That's not the American dream. That's not the way it should be, right? But it's so in between, you don't ever see it. And that's the stuff that you got to be aware of. You got to be aware of. Why are they doing this? How can they do this? Why? I mean, how's there not policy, or can someone sue the shit out of them? I hope so. I hope he sues the hell out of them. Because remember, this is not Elon Musk. This is a normal New York citizen that invested into this business. Most of the dealerships are operated by dealers. Like the guy who, say, hey, I'm going to invest. And he went to a bank. He did all this stuff to open this, the car dealership. Say, hey, I want to sell. This is my American dream. And they just pulled those spots. They just pulled it. They pulled their permit and say, hey, you can't operate anymore. You can't do free business trade in our city because we just don't like you. Is that American? Where did that come from? It's just something to pay attention to. Is how he's talking about some type of politics and some pensions and something like. What are you talking about, dude? This is just a dealership operating, selling vehicles in New York City, and you're taking this whoever owns this, because it's like you think Nissan owns all the Nissan dealerships? No, they have like a franchise right to it. But that's insane. That's insane to do it that way. Unless they know particularly he owns these or something like that. But like you said, I hope they sue the living shit out of this guy.
I mean, what is going on in your state, Congressman? It's crazy that they don't like what Elon Musk and Doge are doing, so they decide to pull their businesses from New York State.
Well, this is why New York leads the nation in out-migration. We have the highest tax climate, the worst business climate.
Out-migration
because of
moving
reckless policies like this. The fact is, they set arson to Tesla. They're burning Teslas to the ground, and then they want to sue Elon Musk, claiming that the stock has devalued. The fact is that in New York, they have an electric vehicle mandate that has been put in place for 2035, and yet they're proposing legislation to ban the biggest seller of electric vehicles. It's a joke, and it really needs to stop.
Yeah. Real quick before you go, Congressman, on the SALT deduction, are you hoping to lift that deduction to $25,000 in this reconciliation plan?
Look, I introduced a bill for 100,000 individual, 200,000 married couple.
Okay.
We are in the process of negotiating. I've been very clear, just doubling it from 10 to 20 is not acceptable to me. 25 is probably in that category as well. Look, people need real tax relief, and that's my objective in this negotiation.
Congressman, we're going to be watching you work on that one for sure. Great to see you this morning, sir. Thank you.
That's interesting. Okay, so just a little stock market look. Brinker International, right? Chili's. I know I've talked about this a little bit. Let's see if I can. Oh, I want to move me out of the way here. I'll make sure I'm not in the way. There we go. Some people listened to me on this way back when, like I said, when it was $8 and it shot up to $175. And then it looks like we are back down or to $153, which is crazy because I still don't understand. I understand during COVID, you know, they probably doubled down on their stock to make sure it didn't take a dump. But like, look in that time frame. Let's see if I can. Boop. See, this was the 2020, right? Yeah. And it had the highest peak during COVID. People weren't even able to eat out. So, you know, when you're trying to figure out these stocks, like there's just no way of understanding other than the own company put a bunch of money to save the stock and then it fell, you know. But then after 2024, it just jumped up. I know there was some moves. They may have shut some restaurants down. I don't know. But again, in the shows prior, I said, hey, Tesla's going to take a huge uptick, right? I said by the end of the week, I thought it was going to be up to 300-ish, 290. And we're sitting right now at beautiful $281 or 282 pretty much. So just in, you know, the time frame, if you were to take advantage of just a dip, and that's really what it is. It's just a dip. You know, you put a bunch of, man, I would double everything you got on that one, you know. It's definitely the evaluation of Tesla is going to be, because once it gets through all these things, people are going to love it. Tesla has more advertising, right? They're American made, 100% American made. You understand? 100%. It's not assembled in America. It's not made anywhere else. Okay. Tesla's here to stay. They're not going to be affected by any tariffs. Okay. It will jump back because right now, 280 even, back up to 400. I think it'll be in 1 year, it'll be in 600 range. Because once he finally starts issuing checks and, you know, it's all emotional, right? And people trade and buy by emotions. So that's something to look at. I would almost say it's going to bypass 400 mid, probably August, and then it's going to go into the 600s, if I were to guess. Because then he'll like send people to Mars and everybody's going to change their opinion on what's going on there. GameStop. GameStop's doing some moves, you know, like it actually shot up to, when was that? It shot up to 32, right? And that was just from 20 something. So, I mean, that's a pretty big jump for unknown reason, right? And of course, everybody's looking at the GameStop mentality thinking, hey, how do we get on that? You know, everybody wants some of that if you're a stock guy. Paycom's local, right? I would think, and like you said, just kind of looking at it, Paycom went crazy during the epidemic. Look at it. From 20 to 22, it's at the highest peak at 534. It's sitting at 200 right now. What are we going into right now? Oh, a recession and da-da-da-da-da. Okay, it could be something you can look at and go, well, what is that going to do? All these huge manufacturers are coming in. You don't think Paycom salespeople are starting to sell their product to them? You better pay attention to it. And you can't go anywhere and not see Paycom buildings being built. That's kind of a sign, right? That's something to look at. So I am no expert of the stock market. My little disclosure, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Do what you want. This is just something to look at, okay, for you guys. Paycom. Amazon, man. The thing is, my only thing about Amazon, knowing about them, are they done? Like, people right now probably order, and they're going to order what they're ordering right now. Who cares what you're buying, because you have options to buy all this stuff, right? Doesn't matter if it's American made, doesn't matter if it's foreign. They'll bring you the best price, the best quality, right? So I don't know if they're continuing to build anywhere, or are they at their top growth? I don't know. That's a hard one. Amazon's hard, man. If they do something with the UPS, and they're talking about decommissioning the government mail system, there could be some changes here, right? Because what if they just said, "Hey, just drop your mail"? It's an Amazon mail outlet or something like that, like UPS or anything else like that. So something to look at. AT&T, man, these guys kill everybody when it comes to internet and all that stuff. So JP Morgan, Bitcoin, we all know about Bitcoin, right? We're looking at it sitting at 86,000. I mean, everybody's like, man, I wish I would have put 100,000 at what is that? 300? I mean, who wouldn't, right? But that's where you got to take that risk. That's where the risk and the reward. Ford Motor, man, I'm curious to see what's going to happen, right? Because this says assembled in America. If they stuck true and they didn't get cheap and send everything across the border, the state lines kind of thing, or, export everything and then get it made and then bring it in, they shouldn't be affected. Like, these car companies should go crazy because everybody can write them off, right? If it's American made, you can write it off. To what percentage? I don't think he ever said. He never said a percentage. You can do that now, but I mean, I think they're saying a regular homeowner can write off their vehicle that they purchase. So, I mean, that should be something. Keep an eye on it. Because look at these high peaks. Even if you did what you're doing now, let's see if so open at $20. It's currently at 10. There's a good chance, even just looking at this graph, and there's a good chance that this peak will eventually come back up. So that's a double stock, right? You can say, if I put 10,000, I should be able to get 20, maybe in a year. Because if you look at the peaks and kind of, you're just, like you said, I'm just kind of looking at this, making a regular layman's decision. There's a good chance. There's going to be some flux going on in these motor companies. People are going out right now rushing to Honda, Nissan, and they're, like they said, sales are way up. But because it's that effect that we were talking about, they start talking about taking something away. What do the people do? They go crazy. They say, "Hey, I'm gonna go put all my money in this, whatever it is." So just looking at it, gold, back to gold again. I mean, that's insane. Look at that. It's a commodity, or it's a regular stock, I guess, but 1,600 to 3, so that's a double stock in less than a year. But we already knew this, right? We knew that when Trump came in, just the belief of what he can do, just the sheer belief of what Trump can do, everybody believe everything's going to get better. So what do? It's an emotional training, right? So that's what's happening. Stocks and everything, everybody knew that. That's why everybody's dumping their housing right now. They're selling. Like I said, I don't know how many notifications I've already got right now. I keep looking at my phone, and the notifications from Zillow on houses that I've been looking at are blowing up, because nobody wants to be holding the buck. Okay. Even if you get that 200,000 only sell for 150, well, it was only worth 100 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So yeah, it's still a good deal, right? So that's why everybody's they're to the rush. Sell the house, put it in the stock market. That's what's happening. Let's see. You would think, and like I said, I don't know this for sure, but you would think that the gas and oil companies would go crazy. Drill, baby, drill, right? They're going to have more oil and gas, but then also it makes gas prices go down. So I don't know how to really look at that one. The banks, that's crazy, right? This is a Bank of America. So I mean, they're all over the board. Who knows? General Motors, we look at it, looks like there's some legitimate peaks that you can see, right? See, I think these hiccups are when people do the fear mongering in the communities. Oh my God, we're all going to die. Oh, it goes skyrocket. Then billions of dollars gets invested here, comes up here, they sell it, and they do it again. They can track it, right? Silver, I don't think anybody cares about silver, but anyway, I had a whole lot. Here's a quick clip on the oil, kind of what we were talking about.
Extra 25% tariff on any country that buys oil or gas from Venezuela. Trump's former Energy Secretary, Dan Brouillette, joins me now. Dan, Trump is talking about doing the same thing with Russia, imposing secondary tariffs on anyone who buys their oil. Do you think it would work on Putin?
Yeah, good morning, Stuart. Yeah, I think it will work, and I think it will work on Maduro as well. I think people tend to forget that Nicolas Maduro was indicted in 2020 on narco charges. He has a long history with the cartels in Venezuela, and he uses the oil money that he gets from places like China and other parts of the world to fund those activities. So he exports not only his oil, but he exports, as we now know, his terrorists, his cartel criminal friends to places like the United States. So I think the president is right to target countries who continue to do business in places like Venezuela.
I spoke with the current Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, on the program yesterday. Listen to what he had to say about a nuclear renaissance. Roll it.
President Trump as well is committed to getting this nuclear renaissance that's been talked about for years, but actually getting it going. We have a project right now, the Palisades nuclear power plant in southwestern Michigan, was shut down 2.5 years ago, just needlessly retired. That plant will be back online hopefully by the end of this year, and if not the end of this year, very early next year. So we're going to see some plant restarts. We're going to see increased investment. We will see a small modular reactor, hopefully running, and definitely several under construction during President Trump's term in office.
What do you say, Dan? A big-time renewal of nuclear energy on the way back, big time?
Well, I think so, Stuart. The Secretary is absolutely correct. What we're seeing in the marketplace today is the development of new technologies, which I think are going to change public perception around nuclear energy. And what's important for us to do here in the United States is perhaps change some of the mindset.
So I just wanted to add to that. Like, I think nuclear facilities scare the shit out of everybody. Tell me if I'm not wrong. Everybody's like, hell no, one earthquake, one tornado, one major event, and like you have just everything's contaminated. All the nightmares of pretty much every horror flick you've ever seen, zombies and stuff like that. So good luck with that. I know it's going to be a necessity here and there, but something more local. I was hitting out to see if I find it here. So locally, federal cuts, 1.75 million federal grants were cut for efficiency in Oklahoma. So that's the Doge OK released the first report that they were identified 1.7 million federal grants that they're cutting. So that's interesting. I wonder what they really are into and if they're going to repurpose them. Or are they just going to take them? Because I hate to see good programs cut, but then again, how do you know? Right? Obviously, they're cutting to cut. So that's everybody, and everybody's tasked with that. So Governor Stitt, right, took office in 2019. So he's been around for a little bit. Implement strategies to reduce the number of state employees and lower the number in 2019. Sorry, we couldn't find any code. Yeah, okay. So that was just something local. Then back to the tariff war. But that's all I really had for you guys today. Just kind of saying at 4 p.m., today, all the major news will be coming out, but I don't really go live later in the day. So I'll try to do an update tomorrow on just the high points of what's going on. But that kind of gives you, nobody wants change. Nobody wants anybody to outdo anybody. All hell's breaking loose in terms of other people's opinions. But at the end of the day, they're cutting on finding all this fraud. But at what point are they going to, where does that kind of relate back to the American individual persons, people, what do we benefit from it? I know from all the stuff that they've already been doing for so long, spending and misspending and hopefully it'll be good. Like I said, it sounds like it's all well and everybody's, super excited about the tariffs and what they're going to do. And I think what they're doing is they're waiting for people's responses. What are they going to do? What are they going to make Trump do in the negotiations? You want to mess around, and let's mess around, okay? And that's really what she's saying. That's probably why he's waiting until 4 o'clock, going, hey, this is how we're going to react. This is what's going to happen. It's just, what are you going to do? Are you going to say yes, or are you going to do the, I add 25, you're going to add 25, and pretty much you're just shutting it down. Let's not play this game. We're just shutting you down at this point. So I don't know. We'll see. But that was my show for today. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys.